Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Student Body Right USC podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, and as always, I am podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. It was like 82, but it felt a little hotter than that. Today it was hot. It was pretty hot. So all the June gloom folks can calm down and relax and say, hey, I live in Southern California again, so they'd be good to go. On Twitter, it is PORSBR is my Twitter handle. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and then on Threads, because it's like 20, it's like all these social media things now. So you put on waivers _podcast, put on waivers _podcast, and then you guys have been doing a great job following the show. I really appreciate the USC fans and the Raider fans who follow the show. We're almost to that goal of 1,000 subscribers, where we can do even more things for you. So I really appreciate all that. We have a guest here, and Evan Deasi, who does a lot of the different things with other sports, but also used to write for USC for a long period of time. Want to get his thoughts about some things going on with the defensive line here. So first of all, how you doing?
Chilling, man. I'm good. Can't wait for fall camp to start. Can't wait for media day to start. It'll be a good time. Season's almost here.
It's almost here. It's almost here. I'm like, it's kind of like I'm excited, but then I'm also like, the year goes by like that. It's almost, as soon as football starts, it's basically New Year's. So yeah. it goes by pretty quickly. But we're gonna kind of talk about the defensive line first for you guys. So let's just start there. So we all know Alex Grinch is under fire. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Keon Bars, you got Bear Alexander, Anthony Lucas, who has a lot of potential. We don't know if that potential is going to be realized. Jamil Muhammad. It seems like they have a lot of depth as far as like the rush ends go, but maybe in the middle might be a little bit worrisome. I think also Jack Sullivan's going to be a guy who, we're going to hear from as well. What are your thoughts, overall prevailing thoughts about the defensive line here with the Trojans going into the season?
I think you kind of hit on it, honestly, when you talked about how there's more depth. There really wasn't much depth last year. It was kind of like we kind of knew coming into the season what it was going to look like. And this time around, I honestly don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, I have my ideas about what it's going to be, but there's a bunch of different ways that they can go. Now they have a guy like Jamil Muhammad, who's really athletic, can play multiple linebacker spots, and can kind of help out at rush end. You got Anthony Lucas, who you mentioned, can kind of play on the end, and I think also can kind of put his hand on the ground more often. Plays more of a traditional defensive end. I think he probably even move inside a little bit just because he's got that size. Jack Sullivan, already a proven player at a high level, physical guy. He can play inside as well. And then, the two big guys in Bars and Bear Alexander, who two guys that have the type of size that USC really needed last year and really does need. I'm sure we'll get into that. But, and then Tyrone Taleni was a second-team All-Pac-12 selection. He might not even start, So you're looking at a lot more bodies that are actually quality guys that USC can really put to work this year.
I think one thing that I really want to kind of emphasize here when I look at the rotations and everything like that, the depth is there, is that I don't want to put Bear Alexander out there for everybody, out there every damn play. Like, I want to just use this rotation, and then in critical moments in the game, we can definitely see him do his thing. I just don't want to overwork the Bear, if you will, because I think what worked at Georgia was they had that rotation. They had that rotation that consistently bring in big guy after big guy after big guy. And I don't know. I mean, he can do a lot of things as far as rushing the passer. I don't know if in this defense, it's going to be a new defense. It's going to be something different. Is he going to be able to be that run stuffer? I think everything we're looking at with Keon Bars is he's going to be a guy who can stuff the run. But you want to get the third and long And I think a lot of times will teams I think what they're counting on is teams aren't going to be patient enough to kind of stay with the running game when you know you have to score so many points to even have a chance to beat USC.
Oh, no question. And I think that we saw that rotation really firing with Kirby Smart when it came to what he was doing with Bear Alexander last year. You saw it come together at the biggest stage. You know, the national championship game, he had 2 sacks. Dude, as a true freshman, is insane. You know, I'll always talk about that game just because of what he had and what I think it means he could bring to USC. And again, like the fact that you have a 2 deep now, really throughout the entire front 7, really throughout the entire defense, which to be quite honest with you, we just didn't have last year. I think that we saw guys in spurts play well, like Solo Bird comes to mind. Solo Tuliaupupu, I think, had some good games in there. Kind of had his moments, but we never really saw consistent play from a core group of guys. I think we're going to see that, as well as maybe getting the flashes from some other guys who are a little bit lower on the depth chart. Some other guys that have been here a while, trying to get used to the defense and everything. So yeah, if we can get a rotation going, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and people keep talking about the fans keep saying like, you know, hey, watch out for Sam Green, watch out for Sam Green. Like he's like I think that the idea here is, I get it. Like they have more. I wish they had one more Keon Bars type to play on that first down. So I'm kind of like, because you know what the NFL does. NFL is, they're gonna be very similar to. I mean, they're gonna try to run it. They're gonna try to. They have to. You're playing USC. You got to test the run. You got to see if they can stop the run. It's huge. It's a huge part of it. But the run won't get it done as far as winning the game. But if you keep that balance, then you keep that defense on the field. Wish they had one more big body in there just to kind of handle those rundowns. But you know, right now, like the pass rush is going to be, if Anthony Lucas. I think Anthony Lucas and the depth piece of Corey Foreman is going to be something where we look at and say to yourself, hey, if they can continue, the Corey Foreman can develop, Anthony Lucas can kind of figure out what he does great because he has the physical tools to be special. The pass rush rotation is going to really be difficult to deal with. Like, I mean, especially if you can get pressure with 4 without having to blitz.
Oh, no question. It's going to look like how Oregon looked against us with Kayvon Thibodeau when they were just teeing off on Keaton, and it was bad. I mean, I think that like that's the kind of defense that you want in the Pac-12. You really want to be able to kind of have those kind of athletic ends, and those guys can be those type of players, obviously. With Lucas, I think that he was kind of, you know, back on the depth chart with a bunch of really talented guys that were ahead of him. That was kind of something that was a little bit beyond his control last year at Texas A&M. But, you know, just obviously the reality is if those guys do play to their potential, it's going to answer a lot of different questions. Yeah. And, you know, that's basically the whole defense is going to really improve off of that because everybody talks about, you know, what can this secondary bring? Well, the secondary's best friend is good pass rush. It makes their job a lot easier. So, you know, it's tough to just say, oh, well, if they play to their potential, USC's defense will be X and it'll be Y, because we haven't seen them play their potential. But it is true that if that does happen, big things can happen. And it's possible it was just a matter of time about Corey getting used to what's going on with Alex Grinch's defense. He's got a lot of turbulence going on with the coaching staff since he signed. And, you know, Lucas, obviously, there are some issues there program-wide at Texas A&M. I like that he's getting a fresh start.
Yeah. And I think that the fact that Solomon Bird, Romello Height, Tillini, all these guys, they saw the influx of people come in and they stayed. I think that is something that's really, that's a big thing. Like they actually stayed. So that means they feel like they can be big contributors on this team. And like, listen, there's a lot of snaps in these games. So I definitely feel like they could contribute a big deal here for the Trojans. Do you have anything else about the defensive line you wanted to who's the, I mean, obviously without saying Barry Alexander, who do you think in this group would be the key to the engine here to make sure everything goes where they want it to go?
I think it's Jack Sullivan, because I think we've already seen it, and I think we've seen him play a really physical brand of football, which is what everyone keeps talking about when it comes to USC. Obviously, they talk about it a lot because of the whole, they're going to the Big Ten and all that. But, you know, Jack Sullivan's already played in the Big Ten. He's played like a Big Ten defensive lineman. He's exactly what you would think when you're getting a 4-star transfer D lineman from Purdue, and played against some great teams, some great offensive lines, obviously last year in the Big Ten championship game against Michigan. So I'm excited for him. I think that he can, potentially even be in a leadership role just due to his experience. And I mean, not much was given to him coming out of high school. He wasn't some big time recruit or anything. He worked for what he got, and now he's at USC.
Yeah, it should be fun to see what he does. I think he could be that, like, and he's a senior. Give him that leadership role in there. Like I think he's more athletic as well than people give him credit for. Like, usually, not to be along racial lines, but people like Jack Sullivan always get kind of stereotyped as the try hard, like whatever kind of guy. He's a guy might be able to play on Sundays too. So like don't get twisted he's like the try hard, whatever. Like he can go get the quarterback. So don't play that game with Mr. Jack Sullivan. Yeah, so depth is there. We like we like a lot of the pieces there. I guess they interviewed a anonymous. I don't have the quote in front of me. I saw it on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but I thought Instagram. I thought I was able to save it. I didn't save it. It must have been like 2:00 in the morning. Who knows? But basically, that anonymous Pac-12 coach said, "Hey, this Alex Grinch is not going to be able to fulfill this. Like, he is. You can still line up and run the football right at him, all these things like that." So what are your thoughts about, like, first of all, I mean, I guess there was a whole series of Athlon Sports. There's a whole series about with coaches from conferences, and they get them to go off the record and just not use their name and whatever. I just feel like if you're gonna say it, just say it. You playing these people, just say it. Like, what I'm saying? But say it with your chest, like, as they say on the street. What were your thoughts about, like, the prevailing thought that this kind of won't get done? I think that I got to give him, I want him to go only because Leonard is out there. Like, Leonard's just hanging out there, low hanging fruit, talented defensive coordinator. But for continuity, for all these other reasons, people came even though they saw the Tulane game. So let's have faith for one more season and then see what happens. But what are your thoughts about, like, what his peers think of Alex Grinch?
I mean, it really depends on who it was, honestly. Which, like you said, say it with your chest. He ain't say it with his chest. It was an anonymous type of thing. But, like, look, the thing is, it's a Pac-12 coach. There's only one team in the Pac-12 who I really think out physicals USC, and that's Utah. I thought that we saw that in the Pac-12 championship game, of course. And obviously, I do know that game goes a lot differently if Caleb Williams doesn't pop his hamstring. But just, I do think they're a more physical team than USC. But other than that, I can't really think of anybody who really out physicals USC. I know that UCLA had some success in the run game against USC, but they kind of abandoned it a little bit. And it was USC actually did better against the run than a lot of teams did when they played UCLA. Yeah. And, obviously
they did. He only had 99 yards. The big running back only had 99 yards in that game, which is like, for him, that's a very low total because, we all know that, that coach and that, I forget the running back's name.
Dax Charbonnet.
Charbonnet had a great, he's kind of an upright, powerful runner, but, like, he usually has huge games. And you thought in that game, at least he would have a big game against USC.
No, absolutely. And so, again, like, obviously, I've gone on your show before, and I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Grinch.
Yes.
We kind of are just honest about the guy. We don't wish him anything bad or anything like that. We're just
about the results
about this, and we didn't see the results. Like you said. And so I think that I mean, I'm not crazy about him. I don't necessarily know that his brand and his style of coaching defense is particularly physical, but I will say, I mean, if it's a Pac-12 coach, I can't really think of anybody who can really line up and just pound the hell out of USC's defensive line other than Utah, because the thing is, like, let's look at, I would say Oregon on the offensive side of the ball plays very physical in the trenches. I think that even like in that UW game, we really saw their offensive line really take advantage of UW and kind of expose how soft UW's defensive line front was last year. And that just brings me to the next point. Like, even the best teams in the Pac-12, like Washington or USC, a lot of them aren't necessarily playing that type of bully ball style of football. Even Oregon, like I said, they don't play that style of football on defense. It's only on offense in the run game. And then when we saw Bo Nix go down in that game, obviously they really just struggled in general. So you can talk about Alex Grinch. I mean, I get it. I mean, I don't really think he's particularly good, and I'm kind of praying that he'll really put it together this year. And I know Urban Meyer was saying that he expects USC to win the national title because, and he said like Alex, this is like early in the offseason, and that Alex Grinch, he coached under him and he thinks Alex Grinch is great. I hope that's the case,
Yeah.
But I understand why Alex Grinch has a reputation, but I'd like to know who exactly is saying that, because there's only really one team who I think can have assistants that come out and say that, and that's Utah.
And I think even with that being said, like even with him on with Caleb Williams on one leg in that game, those a touchdown pass is 20. It's like 3 points late in the game, and then he just can't, like, he just couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and they knew that. So I think that's one thing where they could have. I think also too, they didn't take advantage of that moment in the game where they were up by a couple of scores. They could have really put that game away, put that game on ice, and if you will. But I could see the comments. We know the comments, but at the end of the day, if he just does it, then they'll be good to go. And you have to even worry about it or think about it. He just needs to have a good season and not be the reason why they're not in the playoff. Like, I mean, like they just can't, like, basically very similar to the Kansas City Chiefs, where Spagnuolo just knows that he just needs to get a 3 or 4 stops in the game or even a turnover, and then 15's taking us home. And that's the same thing with this offense. As far as like physical brand, I mean, like, on the offense, they're plenty physical though. I mean, and that's the reason why I love the fact that, his version of the air raid, he's running, he's pulling guards, he's pulling the center, he's doing all these things to that GT counter to be very physical. And he was very adamant about how physical they played against Notre Dame, because everybody thought Notre Dame was going to go to LA last year and out physical USC. Caleb Williams, obviously we know how good he is. He's pretty good at football. And he's probably going to be the number 1 pick in the draft if everything bears out. Won the ESPY for a man of the year.
Collegiate Male Athlete of the Year.
Yeah, Athlete of the Year. So, like, I mean, God, that's just really a great honor. I think that I want you to speak about that. And like, does he really have an opportunity here if he keeps if he has like another great season, that where he could be that a guy who wins back-to-back Heismans?
I actually do, yeah, because we're looking at him right now, and I'm just I don't know. Obviously, there's no better college quarterback than him now, but I don't know that I can see somebody step up, taking his place next year like the way I did see it last year with Bryce Young. Like, I still love Bryce Young, and he absolutely had a chance to win a second straight Heisman. But guys like CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams, they were in that conversation as well. You knew they would be. You knew that Caleb Williams was going to have another big year, because his true freshman season, he may have won the Heisman if he was playing the whole time. But obviously, Spencer Rattler started that first half of the season, And so I'm looking at this year, and I obviously know many contenders, like Michael Penix in the Pac-12 is a contender. Some people are saying Bo Nix is a contender. So, I mean, there will be competition for sure. But, I mean, if he has – the thing is, like, he had 52 total touchdowns last year, and it was like 5 picks. If he gets better, can you imagine how scary that is? That's going to be, 60 touchdowns and like 4 picks, something like that. Like, he listed his goals. So it's just like – and if he plays at that level, they're going to be winning, 11, 12 games the regular season. He's at least going to put himself in firm position to get it. And, I mean, he'll definitely be in New York. I think I have no doubt about that. I mean, I just think he's that type of freak athlete who can do so much on his own and truly put a team on his back, that I absolutely think he can win a second Heisman.
I got to find the one guy who I think could, because he's coming from a storied program with a lot of history of winning, and everybody feels like they're going to be back this year because they really had some really good transfers. They had some very good recruiting classes, the quarterback for the Seminoles.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they, and plus they don't like
Jordan Travis is his name, right?
yeah, Jordan Travis. I'm saying to myself, like, they're not going to be, the numbers are going to be maybe be similar because, and he won't have to play against the best competition in the world. As far as that goes, if I look up their schedule, I'm sure it's not like terrible. Like it's not ours. It's not the gift that keeps on giving, like ours is. So should be interesting to see. But that'll be the one guy who I think if Jordan Travis has a big year, and people are like doing the tomahawk chop, and people are feeling good about Florida State again, that would be, it's kind of like the same. It's kind of like Caleb's story of last year, like bringing USC to prominence, and we'll see if Jordan Travis can bring Florida State to prominence as well, because they are a team that people are picking, and people who are saying, hey, they could probably possibly be in the playoff as well too. So I have one more question, because I had a conversation. Is the NCAA like pretty much like the door is slowly being shut on that organization? Like, and
On
that's
NCAA.
uh-huh. And
On
like,
NCAA.
yeah, because I'm just saying, like, as far as football goes, like, they don't make any decisions. All they do is just come in and just say, hey, you know what? We're going to take a couple of wins away from you because we don't like what you did in this moment. Like, it just feels like this is an opportunity. I mean, it's like, if these commissioners and these kind of the college football is run by these conferences. And if they just got together and just says deuces, like, I think, I mean, NCAA is going to, as far as like for football goes, like football is close to maybe, college football is close to maybe with NIL and everything, maybe being its own entity.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's why it's convenient time that you ask that now, because if there's any time to put, to close the door on the NCAA, it would be in the next few years with all the changes that are happening with, like you mentioned, NIL, and then of course an expanded playoff, conference realignment, everything. Obviously, the game's changing, but I think that there definitely is a chance that happens regardless, because I think that people now, and probably will continue to in the future, just realize how ridiculous they are.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I remember a few weeks ago, I heard what was it? It was like LSU has now lost 3 games in the past that they thought they won or something like that. It was just like they randomly just pop in and give these punishments. The Tennessee one the other day I got, because that was obviously recent. I knew they were investigating that and everything. It was a big deal, actually a much bigger deal than what Reggie Bush did, but we won't talk about that. And so that stuff I get. But I mean, obviously the punishment was terrible because USC got the death penalty and Tennessee got $8 million, whatever. But again, that's a different story. But like the only other times I hear about them are when they're taking away 3 wins from LSU, whatever the whole thing is. Yeah. And that's just all ridiculous. And I mean, I think that right now these schools are just kind of moving past that, move past the need for them, move past the want for them. Now that they're actually getting the opportunities for players to make money. Now there's NIL collectives, and there are certain schools that are trying to really kind of cut corners there. And I think everyone's probably just getting tired of it. So, yeah, I definitely could see in the near future, with all the changes that are just going to happen, keep happening, I definitely could see the NCAA really not having too much to do with these type of decisions.
Yeah, I think we're on our way to, like, I think when my little one grows up, I think he's gonna be like, what's this in the NCAA thing that used to happen? Yeah. And they're not part of the college football playoff. Are they even on the trophy? Like, they're not even. I mean, it's not even. What are they? Their biggest cash cow. The biggest issue they have is that they didn't take care of their biggest cash cow, which was football. Yeah. And they just didn't take care of it, and the networks did take care of them. So we'll see, man. We'll see. All right, a little D-line talk, a little Alex Grinch, Caleb Williams, NCAA, and we'll wrap that up with Evan Deasi, sports writer Evan Deasi. There's all these different things for athletics as well. So anything else you want to go? Anything before we go? Anything you want to kind of say before we head out of here?
Oh, man, I'm just excited for Media Day. It's going to be Caleb Williams, Mason Cobb. Obviously, I don't know how the heck we're going to watch Media Day. I don't know how that's going to work.
Oh, my God. Could you do, how bad was the coverage of Media Day? Wasn't Media Day last year? It was, they didn't have it live. Although it was live if you watched it on the web.
On the website, yeah.
But if you had TV, they were showing lacrosse. Like
That's
this,
right. Yeah.
and if you want to know why UCLA and USC are leaving, this is the reason why.
Yeah. It's just funny because media day was like 3 weeks after USC and UCLA left. And then you see it right there, and what's his face? George Kliavkov is, answering all these questions about, are you going to poach in Big Ten? We don't know if we're shopping there. It's like, dude, I don't know how much leverage you got. You can't even host a media day, That's why you see the Big 12 poaching these other teams. Pac-12 is still kind of laying in the dust there. So we'll see what happens. I guess for him, I hope it works out. But I just want him to put together a good media day that I can actually see and get excited for what the other conferences had. Because I don't have that.
Yeah. When you have we have some really prominent head coaches.
Yeah.
When you have some really prominent players, you might want to put your media day on TV. Even if it was
on Apple, the Heisman on TV.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's Apple TV Plus, like I don't care. Like if it's on Netflix, like put it on actual TV so people can watch it. Please, my God. Sure. All right, man. Take care, brother. Do your thing.
Appreciate it. Peace out.
Peace out. Fight on.
Fight on.